The moment I shouted it, I didn't think anyone would answer. Not really. I was on the edge of the abandoned spaceport, my boots scuffing against the rusted metal grates, staring at the dark silhouette of the planet below. Is there anyone who wants to marry me? The words slipped out like a dare, half laughing, half drunk on boredom and despair. Then the air changed. Not a sound, not a whisper, just a cold weight pressing into my chest. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then, she appeared. Her shadow unfolded across the landing platform before I even saw her face. It was impossible, like someone had carved darkness into a shape that walked. Her eyes glowed with a red light that felt too alive, too knowing. I froze, unable to look away. You called me, she said. Her voice wasn't human, it slid into my mind before it reached my ears. And now, I am here. My heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't the kind of answer I expected. Not from anyone, certainly not from an alien woman whose presence radiated both beauty and death. But that was only the beginning. I learned quickly that she was called Selira. The humans who had charted her species, far beyond the border of the Milky Way, described them as vampiric in the most clinical sense. But what they didn't tell anyone was that they weren't monsters, not exactly. Selira's kind survived by bonding with other lifeforms in a ritual as intimate as it was terrifying. And somehow, my stupid, careless joke had opened a door I didn't even know existed. The first hours were a blur of fear and fascination. She didn't speak in the ordinary way, her words flowed into me, coiling around my thoughts, teasing secrets I wasn't ready to hear. And yet, I understood her perfectly. She studied me with an intensity that stripped me bare, peeling away the sarcasm and bravado I hid behind for decades. What do you want from me? I asked, though my voice shook. I want to see if you are mine, she said simply, as if my very existence had drawn her across light years. You called. I answered. That is all the invitation I need. I laughed nervously, the absurdity of the situation weighing on me. I was joking. I didn't mean it. She tilted her head, and her long, silver-black hair caught the weak artificial lights of the spaceport. Humans joke with their words. I respond to the intent beneath them. Intent. The word lodged in my chest. Did she know I was desperate? That beneath the empty bravado, I had been screaming for connection for years, drowning in loneliness on a fractured earth? None of us were prepared for the truth. We left the spaceport together, or rather, she guided me, almost levitating beside me, as if gravity itself feared her. The ship she brought wasn't like anything human had built, sleek, black, humming with a life that seemed aware of my heartbeat. Inside, the walls shifted, morphing subtly as if testing me, judging me. As we traveled, she revealed the truth about her species. They were hunters, yes, but their prey wasn't always flesh. Selira's people bonded with willing hosts, sharing life force in a way humans could barely comprehend. It is not death, she whispered one night as I stared at the swirling galaxy outside the viewport. It is understanding. Fusion. Connection. The more she spoke, the more I realized I was falling into a world I had only seen in nightmares and fantasies. Every gesture, every word, carried weight. I couldn't look at her without feeling exposed, understood, and terrified. Then came the first test. I woke to her presence in my cabin, not quite standing, not quite floating. You must choose, she said, her red eyes reflecting the stars beyond. Will you bond with me, or refuse? Bonding meant everything. It meant surrendering part of myself, merging life forces with a being whose nature was so alien it made Earth's politics seem trivial. Refusal meant returning to a lonely orbit around a dying planet, the cold reaching into the very marrow of my bones. I don't know if I can, I admitted, voice breaking. My fingers trembled as I reached for the console, pretending to focus on calculations I didn't understand. She stepped closer, the air around her colder than space, yet intoxicating. It is not about knowing, she said. It is about feeling. And you called to me. Her words hit me like a solar flare. Every fiber of my being screamed against the impossibility, yet some deeper, desperate part of me, the part that had been abandoned by hope, recognized truth in them. But then came the mid-story twist, the turning point I never saw coming. The ship lurched violently, alarms screaming. Warning, a synthesized voice intoned. Unknown energy detected. Boarding imminent. Salira's calm shattered. She had never needed to fight like this before, never against beings who understood her as humans could not. They know I am here, she said, eyes narrowing. And they will try to take you from me. I realized then that this wasn't a simple alien-human encounter. I was now part of a war older than human memory, a cosmic struggle where my life was collateral. Fear clawed at me, but beneath it, a raw, unthinkable exhilaration. I wasn't just a pawn, I might be a key. The attackers weren't human. Their forms shimmered, translucent, horrifying in their perfection. Energy blades sliced through corridors, the ship's gravity failed in bursts. And through it all, Salira moved like liquid shadow, her speed, precision, and raw power leaving me breathless and terrified. What is happening? I yelled as she crushed one of the intruders, her strength almost obscene. They want what you carry inside you, she said, voice low, dangerous. They cannot bond as I can. They will take, destroy, devour. The night stretched into chaos. I thought I would die dozens of times. And then, the moment came. Salira reached out to me, hands steady despite the storm. Trust me, she said. And something in her gaze, fierce, relentless, terrifyingly intimate, made the choice suddenly, terrifyingly clear. I stepped into her embrace, and the world shifted. Not like falling, not like drowning. Like waking inside a storm and discovering the calm was always part of you. My vision flared with color, memory, emotion, and thought not my own. I felt her life entwining with mine, centuries of experience flowing through me. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and impossible. When it ended, when the chaos outside finally quieted, I realized I was alive, but changed. Not just changed. Expanded. Connected. Salira's red eyes softened as she gazed at me, not predator to prey, not alien to human, but two lives finally, impossibly aligned. I wanted to speak, to say something profound, but only one word formed in my mind, why? She smiled, a gesture that sent shivers through my spine and warmth to my soul. Because you called. You laughed. You shouted into the void. And I came. The aftermath was surreal. The attackers fled, leaving the ship scarred but intact. Salira and I drifted above a planet that might have been dead if not for her intervention. And as I looked out at the void, I understood something I had never allowed myself to: love was not only human. And it was not always simple. But nothing about her was simple. And nothing about me, after that night, could ever go back to the way it was. Days later, floating above the scarred remains of a planetary city, I whispered to the stars, I never meant it. I never meant for this. Salira's laughter answered me, low and musical, vibrating through my chest. And yet, here we are. That was when I understood the truth. My joke had been more than a joke. It had been a question no one else could answer. And in that impossible, terrifying moment, the universe itself had answered back. We were alone. Together. Bound. Alive. And the void around us was suddenly full of possibilities. She leaned close, her lips brushing my ear, and whispered, I am yours, if you will have me. Not as prey. Not as master. As life. I felt the weight of it. The enormity. The fear. And the strange, impossible joy of finally being seen for everything I was, and everything I could be. I will, I said, voice trembling. I will have you. Her smile, full of secrets, history, and impossible power, lit the dark around us like a nova. Good, she said. Because you cannot uncall me now. You cannot undo what has begun. And in the silence that followed, filled with stars and memory and the pulse of a life I now shared with her, I realized I had never been alone. Not really. I had only been waiting for the right voice to answer my call. And she had come. The galaxy stretched endlessly before us, full of danger, wonder, and impossible futures. But for the first time in my life, I felt ready. Not because I was fearless, not because I understood the rules, but because I had chosen. And that choice would echo through the cosmos. I shouted into the void, I said softly, and it answered. Her eyes glimmered. Yes. And now, we step forward, together. And as the stars wheeled past our ship, I realized one thing with absolute certainty: life was larger, stranger, and infinitely more beautiful than I had ever dared to imagine. And for better or worse, I was no longer human alone.